It's MFL MarMac Coach Conversation brought to you by Havlicek Trucking, Meyer Auto Service, and Birdnow Chevrolet. Head coach Dan Anderson joining us after a 9-7 victory in week number one over the Crestwood Cadets. And Coach, last week you promised us a knockdown, drag 'em out fight. I have to say you delivered on the promise.
Yeah, it was what we expected to see. Crestwood brings back a lot of really good physical football players, and we know their style of football and what Coach Denner wants to do. They did what they wanted to do, and we did what we'd like to do. And they led the whole game until 10 seconds, 12 seconds left in the game. We kicked that field goal. But give them credit, even with 10 seconds left, we squibbed it, and they were able to get the ball down the field. And a deep field goal try got blocked, but they did a good job at the very end there, trying to get the ball down the field. And both teams are going to win a lot of games. Crestwood's got a really good football team, and we feel very fortunate to go into their place and get that win. Because I think if we played Cresco 10 times, Cresco would probably win more than 5 of them. I really believe. I mean, they're a good football team, and it was, we did enough to get that win, but it could have gone either way.
Take us through the game-winning field goal by Ben Cranbeer. Earlier in the game, you had a bad exchange on the extra point. You had missed a field goal earlier in the game. What gave you the confidence that Ben was going to get the job done and the entire special teams unit was going to get those 3 points so necessary for the victory?
Well, a couple things. One, we needed the 3 points, and points weren't easy to come by. So we didn't feel real comfortable telling our quarterback, drop back in the pocket and wing it, 30 yards downfield. So that was one of the decisions made there. 2, I suppose, would be that, like the extra point, that wasn't Ben's fault. That was a poor snap. But like you said, it's not just the kicker. I mean, there's 4 parts to making a field goal. You got to have a great snap, a great hold, great blocking, and then a great kick. And so you have to have all 4 of those phases. Otherwise, it doesn't go well. And so, I mean, a lot of credit. I mean, everybody talks about Ben's kick, but you got to give credit to Hunter Christopherson making that snap, and Carter Stoddard for a great hold, and then of course the guys up front holding those guys out. Enough time to make that kick. Hunter's been dealing with, our snapper's been dealing with some shoulder issues, and that was really clutch. I mean, again, like we said, Ben, I always have confidence in Ben. I mean, he broke our school record last year, the longest kick in school history, and we were warming up before the game, and Ben was booming it from 50, and the official asked me, they said, "Are you guys going to try extra points and field goals?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, how far out?" And I said, "Probably 50." And he goes, "Yards?" And I'm like, "Yeah, 50 yards." I'm like, "Our guy's got a leg," and I think he was a little surprised that we'd kick him 50, but I told Ben if we get a chance to kick a 40, 45, 50 yarder, I had total confidence he could make that. But obviously, again, the snap and the hold and blocking has to be there too. So a lot of credit goes to not only Ben, but to Hunter Christopherson making a great snap after he'd made a couple of snaps earlier in the game that weren't stellar. And then, Carter Stoddard getting that hold down for the kick.
And looking at the stats from the game offensively, 220 yards on the ground, 4.9 per carry. Just looking at that from a macro perspective, seemingly they look like numbers that you were pretty pleased with from a statistical standpoint, were you?
Yeah, and in those stats, when you say it averaged about 4.8 yards per carry, that's what it pretty much was all night, too. I mean, I don't think we had an explosive play over maybe one play at 20 yards the whole game. I mean, it was very workmanlike, 220 yards rushing. There was no big runs. And, Crestwood didn't have any real big runs either. They probably had a few a little longer than us. And I think that the score can be a little bit deceiving if someone's just a scoreboard watcher. I mean, both teams were able to move the ball up and down the field at times in that game, between the 20s. I mean, we were able to run the ball, and Crestwood ran the ball better than we did. They had, I don't know, they might have had 250, 260 rushing against us, and both Boyna and Skoda both had over 100 yards rushing against us. They are very physical, and that's what they wanted to do. And but both teams had a hard time when we got down closer to the red zone, and either key penalties or just turning the ball over on downs. And actually, both teams took good care of the ball, too. I mean, we didn't have any turnovers, no interceptions or fumbles, that Cresco got from us. And I believe it was the same. I don't think we didn't get any interceptions or get any fumbles from them. So Both teams took care of the ball, but there were a few turnovers on down in the red zone. But it was just it could have gone either way, Darren, and we were very fortunate to come out with the win.
And coming back, one of your leaders on this team was going to be Quinn McHugh, but he was one of those guys that had to be set in the way for you, but 126 yards on the ground for him, and defensively, he ended up with 7 total tackles and 9.5 overall. Is that the type of performance that just kind of establishes him as that, shall we say, go-to guy on both sides of the ball for you?
Well, he is. He's an outstanding football player, and he's a good leader, and he's a smart kid, and he does things right, and he understands the game. That was a tough 126 yards that Quinn had. I mean, he was pretty beat up after the game. I mean, he's fine now, but those were hard yards, and defensively, he was really flying up there and hitting, and guys were rallying around him, but he was usually one of the first guys at the football. He's just a heck of an athlete, and we're very pleased with how he plays, and we're glad he's on our team.
And when you look at the things that you want to take from week number 1 and build off of and get better from heading into week number 2, what tops that list?
Well, we got the win, but we talked to our boys that winning doesn't make you better, improving does. And you can't be satisfied with just winning that game because, when they came in and watched film on Monday, right after, before practice, we were pretty hard on them, really. I mean, we were showing a lot of things that's not Bulldog football. We got to do a better job carrying out our fakes. Our pad level was terrible. We told our guys, I mean, look at this. And we were showing them on film. The good thing is everything that we did wrong is correctable, but we definitely have to get better. But you got to understand, we're breaking in, 8, 9 guys on defense that didn't start last year. These are all new guys. And offensively, although our offensive line is pretty much intact from last year, because of a couple of guys that are banged up, we had a couple of new guys in there. And, our backs and our receivers got to do a better job of carrying out fakes, staying with their downfield blocks, things like that. I mean, all correctable stuff, but things you would expect in week 1. We didn't have a scrimmage against another team. We scrimmaged ourselves. We do that for a reason. We have our reasons for that. But I think it definitely showed in our first game that we're going against some big, strong kids from Crestwood, and our guys don't see that kind of competition on our scout team. Although our scout team guys give everything they can, we can't simulate the athletes that Crestwood has, and it showed on Friday night. So we had to fix some things, but it's all correctable stuff. And I'm just pleased with the outcome, but our kids have to understand we can always get better.
But it's ultimately one of those games, I'd imagine, that will get you ready for your tough 1A district coming up here in a couple of weeks, and that's what it's all about, correct?
That's exactly right. I mean, if we take a loss or two here early on in the season, that's not the end of the world. I don't like to lose. The guys know that, but at the same time, the ultimate goal is to win our district. And if we have to play bigger schools that are tough, physical, like Crestwood and like Waukon and like New Hampton, 3 bigger schools that are Class 2A, we're 1A. We did that on purpose. I mean, we have to challenge our guys. And if that means taking a loss or two, so be it, as long as it gets us ready for district play. Last year, we were fortunate to win all 3. We're 1-0 right now. We'll see how the next couple of weeks go.
But when scheduling these things, not only this year, but looking into the future, I'd imagine it's one of those things you got to be good enough to provide those tests for those other opponents. And do you feel that you're getting them ready for their district play by the effort you're giving week in and week out?
I'd like to think so. I mean, we've been to the state quarterfinals 5 straight years in the state championship game. So even though we're a smaller school, we're pretty salty, and I think we'll continue to be salty as long as these kids keep working in the weight room and they have the, we keep doing what we're doing. So, I mean, we're a physical team, and we don't have a lot of fancy wrinkles, but what we do, we'd like to think that we coach our kids right. And so I think that playing us, any 2A school would be happy to play us if they want some good competition. And I guess I already talked with Denner after the game, and I think we're going to try to continue this rivalry that we've got going, for the next couple of years.
And you mentioned Waukon coming to town this week for the home opener. What are you expecting out of the Indians?
Schematically, they're a lot different than Crestwood. The fact that they have, 35 different formations and motions and different shifts and things like that makes them difficult to defend. But when it comes to personnel wise, I mean, they've got a lot of guys back from last year's team. They've got, Hager, I think he's a 3-year starter at tight end and DN, and Curtin's number 8, their running back, linebacker's tough as nails. He's back, and Brinkman's back at quarterback, and Grimstead's a really tough, just a tough player playing like safety linebacker. And, they've got Egan on the D line back. And, some of their linemen aren't the biggest, like Baker and Dietrich and Berger, I believe are their names, but they're tough-nosed kids. And so they got a lot of experience. And one thing we know about walk-on is they're well coached every year, and they get better from week to week to week. And hey, I watched that Decorah film for hours. I mean, lots of hours, last Friday night with walk-on, and Decorah is going to win a lot of football games this year. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if Decorah runs the table, and could go 9-0, or I would think, they have a very good chance of winning their district. They look tough as nails. And so I think anybody looks at that score with walk-on, just understand that Decorah is a 4A school, and they're a very, very, very good 4A school. And so we know we've got our hands full on Friday night here with walk-on. They're going to be probably pretty ornery for after that game last Friday night, and it's going to give us a lot of challenges, things that we didn't see against Cresco, but challenges in a different way.
All right, Dan, we appreciate you taking the time to recap week 1 and get us ready for week number 2. Keep your kids healthy. It ought to be a dandy in Monona on Friday night. Best of luck to you.
All right. Thank you, Darren.
Dan Anderson, MFL MarMac coach. It's brought to you by Birdnow Chevrolet, Meyer Auto Service, and Havlicek Trucking.